Thank you all for joining. This is meant to be an interactive session. So I'm not here to preach because we don't know what's going to be happening with legal ops over the next few years as AI takes hold. So I'm very keen to hear your thoughts. So please feel free to chime in as I'm going through this, and I'm going to try and address your comments as I go along. Um, I've been thinking about this topic a lot lately. So prior to my role here at Law Insider, I was a legal ops consultant, or I ran a legal ops consultancy. And the way legal ops was back then, when I say back then, I've only been in this role for a year. So I'm talking about, the way things were a couple of years ago are very different to the way things are now. And I'm seeing a much more strategic direction for legal ops, one that just wasn't possible, or there was no appetite for, or maybe even any need for a couple of years ago. So that's really what I want to what I want to talk about today. As I said, this is me, Robert. I'm going to get to what legal ops means. So a good question, because sometimes we assume that people do know what it means, but effectively, I want to make sure that I'm starting a conversation today. I'm kind of doing a bit of crystal ball gazing now, and I'm playing the movie forward, as they say. So yeah, any ideas or thoughts or challenges are very welcome. So before I begin, I'm just going to answer Robert's question. What does legal ops mean? So legal ops means running legal like a business. So uh, when you look at an in-house legal team, and this is particularly for in-house, even though law firms have legal ops functions as well, as any kind of company would, they would have an operations function. Um, Legal ops means taking your legal team and running it more like a standalone business to some extent that's integrated into the broader organization. So it's looking at the way that legal spends money. It's looking at the processes that legal uses. It's looking at the tools. It's looking at the people, the org chart. It's the exercise of assessing how the legal team works and whether that's appropriate for the strategy and the nature of the business. And then up until now, the job of the legal ops officers was to optimize the way that legal worked in order to be able to scale with the business, because businesses are growing faster than ever. We have agendas that are much more fast paced than they were 5, 10 years ago. So the whole realm of legal ops arose where it was very clear that there was a need for a better way of running legal. And that was because legal was a bottleneck, or legal was too expensive, or legal was too reactive, and they weren't able to add value in the way that they wanted to. And the business was demanding more of them, but giving them less resources to do so. So this whole realm of legal ops was born. And actually, when I first started in this kind of legal innovation space back in 2017, legal ops wasn't even a term that many people understood or acknowledged or had even heard of. So this is a fairly new space, and it's already kind of coming to its culmination of where it was in its 1.0 era. And I think we're going into legal ops 2.0. Is that clear? Is the definition of legal ops clear, or is there anyone that wants me to elaborate a bit further on that before I go into it? Whilst you think about that question, I'm just going to go through the standard stuff for this webinar. If you have any questions, comments, please drop them in the chat or the Q&A at any time. Dory is behind the scenes as always, and she is typing furiously in order to respond to all your questions. And if she can't, or she thinks it's best that I respond to them live, she'll jump in like the Wizard of Oz and tell me to answer a question. As I said at the beginning of this call, this is an interactive session. I do not have a crystal ball. This is me kind of forecasting what the future holds for legal ops. If you have different ideas, or you're in the space and you've got something to add, please do jump in. I really want this to be a conversation rather than just me broadcasting, so feel free. After the session, you will all get a recording. You can share it with your colleagues. So you'll be able to access it later as well if you wanted to. There are no silly questions or silly comments. This is all new to everyone, so please chime in. Okay. Right. I'm just looking at the questions quickly. How can someone become a legal ops professional? How does legal ops play with all of the other RevOps, DevOps, or does it? And yes, okay, so legal ops, as I said, is quite an all-encompassing term when it comes to the way that legal runs as a business. So yes, it should correlate with other parts of the business. I don't think it has historically, to be honest, but I think this is the actual change that we're going to see. So before we go into it, I just want to get a bit of a pulse from the audience. And so we're going to look at a poll now. In what areas of your legal function are you already using AI? Because just to be clear, Legal Ops 2.0 is driven by AI and its capabilities. So please just take a moment to vote. We're going to give it a couple more seconds and then Dory will present the results. Andreas, I will try and get to that for sure. Yeah, about the structure of how to incorporate legal ops into your legal team and your organization. Should there be a legal ops manager? Great questions. What needs to happen to convince an in-house CFO that legal ops is not a luxury? Great question. We'll talk about all of that. Okay, now let's check the result. Okay, so we have contract review and redlining in the lead. Only 20% have said that they don't use any AI tools, and 14% say they use other tools. Knowledge management, amazing. AI is so good for knowledge management. That's going to be a space that really transforms. Workflow automation, great. Billing, yeah, see, I thought that would be number one. And I thought it would be number one in terms of how billing is transformed, and then time tracking. Okay, so time tracking, I'm assuming that that's more law firm based. Cool, thank you for that. Okay, let's get into it. So why now? Legal ops has evolved from tactical admin to a strategic function. It's gone from fixing what was broken to now designing systems in a more forward-looking way. And I think this is the biggest shift. Whereas up until now, legal ops was brought in to mop up a mess or to make legal a bit better incrementally by looking at broken processes, remapping those processes, redesigning them so that the friction is removed, things are automated, the rest of the business can self-serve. Now they have the ability to scrap all of that to an extent and redesign the system within which legal will operate. But in order to do that, and in order to do that in an alignment with the business's agenda, they're going to need to do that in a much more integrated way, right? Which takes us to the second point. AI is forcing a new chapter where legal ops is becoming the system, not just a cog in it. So whereas before legal ops was maybe a paralegal, poor paralegal, they have no legal ops training as such. They're just young and tech literate. And so we shove them into a legal ops role and say to them, please automate as much as possible, fix stuff and find where things are broken so that we can get more efficient. And, speed was the ultimate goal. Let's get quicker at stuff and let's waste less money. And a lot of the legal ops space came into play because legal was taking too long and costing too much money. And those were the two main drivers. Whereas now, legal ops has the opportunity to redesign systems from the ground up because we have these AI native tools that are giving us capabilities that we could never even dream of. If you look at contract review as an example, you can have a very lightweight word add-in that will review a contract in 9 seconds. So whereas before you might be really interested in the whole workflow of the contract, when it comes in, what Excel spreadsheet you're using to review your playbook or to host your playbook, where your clauses library lives, which is going to be in another Excel spreadsheet or a Notion page or wherever. That was legal ops' role before. Now they're like, no, we don't need to have 12 tools. We can have one. And in order to make it work, we have to be much more intuitive about things rather than look at what's legacy and then just take the analog and turn it into digital. That's, it's an opportunity for legal ops to rethink how the systems are designed from the ground up. The other thing that allows them to do that is that there's appetite and impetus, because before people just didn't want to spend the time, they didn't really feel the need. And now, if you look at any business agenda, it is let's utilize AI to streamline the way we work, to save money, to become more innovative, to gain a competitive advantage. And so, whereas before it was just like, oh, legal, they're a bit slow, they're a bottleneck, but it is quite complicated what they do. So let's not push them too much. Now, CFOs and CEOs are very aware of the power of AI, and they sure as hell aren't going to let legal slow down their deals if they can leverage AI to make it quicker. Which takes us straight to the next point. The business expects legal to move faster with less friction and more intelligence. So there is pressure that we have not seen before. And I talk to people from different areas of a business now, whereas before it was firmly legal. Now I'm getting calls from CFOs and procurement and even contract managers who want to force legal into a different way of working because they're slowing things down. So it's interesting to see how legal ops is becoming an area, or legal rather, is becoming an area that the rest of the business is becoming much more aware of. And they're seeing that this might be the final piece to really increase velocity when it comes to signing contracts, which have a direct impact on your bottom line, of course. I'm seeing lots of comments come in, so I'm just going to pause because, as I said, I really want this to be interactive and I don't want to leave any comments behind. So I am looking at these comments. How do you see AI to perform workflow and knowledge management? I'm going to go into tactics later in this. So I want to just make sure that everyone feels comfortable that I am going to talk about the how in a minute as well. I'm not just going to talk theory. Heidi is saying the one thing to stress is that legal ops is an executive function, not a secretarial role. It leads the charge to run the legal department. Absolutely, Heidi. That's what it should do. Unfortunately, that's not what it always does. And the way that legal ops has been perceived to date, and that's reflected in the seniority of people that have been traditionally hired in these roles, and even the salary of these roles. And it often feels, and I've had conversations with lawyers who say, I really want to move into legal ops because I see the value in it, but I don't want to take a pay cut, or I don't want to be considered to be not at the same level as I was before as a lawyer. So I think that just culturally, there needs to be a shift, and there will be. Chris is asking if there are any courses to gain skills in or upskill in the areas everyone's talking about for the future GC, so legal design, legal strategy. Chris, we're going to try and cover as much of these topics in these webinars. So if you just stay subscribed, I'm going to talk about all of those things in due course. And you can also access our YouTube channel where you can find other webinars as well. I don't know if you attended the masterclass in prompt engineering, but that's a good one to look at. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the next few slides. So as I said earlier, the way that legal ops got to where it is that previously it was very focused on cost control, process efficiency, and vendor management. In fact, historically, clock, which are the grandmothers of legal operations and the ones that coined the term, they were ops managers in legal teams in large organizations, including Google and others, and they came together to coin this new term, which was legal ops. It's we help legal run more business-like, but predominantly the focus was cost control and efficiency, and vendor management, of course. And then when legal ops became a thing, CLMs also became a thing, contract lifecycle management systems. And what legal ops was usually tasked with, if you did have an official legal ops function or just someone who was, by proxy responsible for that part of your legal team, they were implementing contract lifecycle management systems. So they were just implementing software, really. It was taking them a long time to map out what the processes should be that get automated via these CLMs. There was a lot of failure when it came to CLMs. It is such a disappointing chapter in the world of legal tech, may I say. I know that's quite provocative, but I've been very disappointed by CLM because it promised the world and it did not deliver. And I have lots of thoughts there, and one day we'll cover them. But it was very tactical and ops, and and they operated reactively. So they were solving yesterday's problems rather than looking forward. But there is a tipping point, and that's where AI comes into it, because AI is not just another tool. I have heard this a lot. I've been to quite a few conferences this year, and that is just one of those catchphrases that you hear, and just unfortunately, it grates on me when I hear that AI is just another tool. It's not a tool. It reshapes how legal work flows, right? It reshapes how we think about things. It's actually making us question our value, right? It's not just another tool, it is a different way of working that will shift the legal profession and other professions into realms that we have not previously imagined. And when I say that, I don't say that to exaggerate or to be a sensationalist. I truly mean that the way that lawyers work over the next 5 years will fundamentally shift, because instead of us being executing in execution mode, where we're just grinding away reviewing contracts, we're going to be expected to design systems that do that. And those systems will be AI driven. And those AI systems are not just reactive. They don't just do exactly what you say in a very workflow based way like CLM did or previous legal tech did. It will also respond to you and challenge you and predict things for you. So it's not just a tool, it's almost a partner. And the quicker we start seeing it that way, the less barriers we will have to really utilizing its full potential. And legal work is no longer document first or lawyer gated, because intake, review, and negotiation can begin before legal steps in. And that's on the basis that with good AI tools, you can set guardrails and parameters to empower and enable the rest of the business to do things that were traditionally only legal's remit. I wrote a newsletter a couple of weeks ago about lawyers babysitting contracts, and the reason we're babysitting them and making sure that no one touches them, and it's they're ours. In a lot of organizations, people aren't, the business is not even allowed to send out an NDA. It's because we are scared that the rest of the business can't interact with a tool unsupervised. But if you have an AI agent that is supervising it, and you trust the AI agent to do the job well and to escalate when needed, then that shifts. And you may not have something that you fully trust now, but you will. In a couple of years, things will change and AI will become amazing and really powerful. And you'll get to a point where AI can be your junior lawyer that looks after people and things and processes. And when that happens, we're going to be talking about a very different structure for a legal team and what its objectives are going to be. And that's how AI will transform legal workflows. We're reviewing, drafting, and detecting risk much faster, much smarter, at scale. And when I say at scale, I mean it's because legal won't be responsible for all the doing. So if you think about it, you had legal ops, and they were really focused on how the lawyers worked. But if you think about legal ops, ensuring that the legal work product is able to be delivered by multiple people in an organization who may or may not have a legal background, then that's a different role and different remit for legal ops, hence legal ops 2.0. I'm just going to pause there again and look at some of the questions. Yes, system design is something that is really, really relevant in this day and age. Can a senior procurement person move to legal ops? I think anyone who has an understanding of legal contracts and just good ways of working, but is also very aware of the power of AI, can do that. Should legal ops report to COO, CFO, or GC, or be embedded in business units? Andrew, that's such a great question. I think it depends on the nature of the business, and I think it depends on how integral legal is within a business. I actually think that a GC and the GC and the legal ops role will enmesh significantly. And so the question, we've always had the question, who should the GC report to? It's a good question still. It depends on the nature of the business, although I've never been a fan of GCs reporting to the CFO, because that signals how legal is perceived. But I think that if we will start seeing legal ops people with a legal ops remit, whether that's the GC or the legal ops director, reporting directly to the COO, because the COO has the job of ensuring that the whole business is running as efficiently and seamlessly as possible. And legal is a part of the business. So there is no reason why that won't happen soon. Thank you, Sky, for saying that Law Insider and Spellbook are excellent for contract redlining. I agree. Okay. Should legal ops also plan and design how company wants to communicate with customers in customer contracts, policies, and procedures? Alexandra, absolutely. That's not something that AI is driving as such, but yes, totally. Okay, I'm gonna continue. Agree on the co-counsel conversation, by the way, Sky. Okay, so the mandate has gone from fixing inefficiencies to designing systems, and it's gone from fixer to architect, right? So from tool manager to systems architect, and from cost control to business enablement. So as you can see, the legal ops remit is moving from tactical, reactive to proactive and very commercial, right? We're looking at the whole organization and what it needs to achieve and how legal is going to help the business get to where it wants to go. If you haven't read this book by Donella Meadows, which is Thinking in Systems, please read it. It's a great read, and it just will change the way that you see things. But a system is a set of interconnected things that produce patterns of behavior over time. So I'm not going to summarize the book because I can't, and also you should totally read it. But basically, the way that I think we're going to move towards, or the way that I think legal ops will move towards, is everyone in the legal team needs to have legal ops by design in its DNA. So I don't think that legal teams that are just churning out contracts or responding to repetitive queries all day long, or managing contracts manually, and answering questions about those contracts and kind of manually monitoring them, is going to cut it in a world of AI. When I say in a world of AI, I don't just mean because AI gives us the tools to not have to do that, but because the pressure is going to come from the business for us to not do that. And there will also be scrutiny around the AI agenda of each team. And I already see that happening. And if it's happening to you, please share that with us in the comments, because I'd love to hear what kind of pressure people are feeling now to implement AI tools to work better. But if you think about how we're going to achieve that, it's not just by implementing AI within existing processes to replace them or to augment them. It's by looking at the whole system and how the business interacts, each business unit or each function of the business interacts in a way that will promote the business goals. And again, that's something that legal hasn't always been embedded in. Legal hasn't always been fully aware of or at the table when conversations are happening about business strategy. And I've always encouraged legal to go and find out, because they're not always invited. But I think that it's becoming much more apparent, and businesses are feeling it more acutely, that deals are stifled when the contract is delayed. And so legal plays a huge role in the commercial velocity of an organization, which is why thinking in systems is the way that the transformation that I'm foreseeing will occur. Because legal ops becomes the connective tissue. It embeds playbooks, clause libraries, fallback logic, creates feedback loops between what's, the risk insights that you're getting from your contract database. Then you're looking at how your users are behaving. Then you're looking at how your templates are being used and redlined and marked up by the other side. And you're looking at all these insights that AI can now give you, and you're pulling them together to redesign the way you work, not just by retrofitting existing processes, but by rethinking those as a system. So I'm going to get into tactics now. Dory, are there any questions that I should stop and answer before I do that?
I don't think so. I think we've had a lot of really great commentary going on in the chat here. So Please feel free to post any kind of comments that you've got in the chat. If there's a specific question you would like answered, it's easiest if it goes into the Q&A, because then we can make sure that that gets handled either immediately or through the Q&A towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Legal Ops 2.0 in practice, 6 transformations that I think we're going to be seeing. So someone asked what workflow is. Workflow is the automation of a process, or it doesn't even have to be automation. It's about how if you were to map out a process, someone submits a contract for review, that goes to a triage person. They triage whether this is a high risk, low risk, medium risk contract, whether there's any specific legal knowledge that's required in order to review it. It then goes to the right lawyer, the lawyer reviews it, blah, 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 all those steps. That's a workflow, and you can take that workflow and in many instances automate it. So a big job that legal ops had previously was that they would sit down with a legal team and they would map out their processes, and they would find bits that were terrible, broken, confusing, then they'd redesign that process and they'd layer that with automation to make it much less of a lift. So the old way that legal ops did that was doing things like create intake forms. So for example, you may have heard of a legal front door. Lots of legal ops teams were tasked with creating a legal front door or an intake form, even in its lightest form. And that was basically a way for the business to interact with the legal team. And so they created this kind of formal way and very formulaic way for the business to interact with legal, because it avoided lots of just back and forth. Then you had checklists. So legal ops did a lot of checklists. They would write down all the things that you need to remember when you're reviewing a contract, when you're approving a contract, when you're sending a contract out for review, what the memo needs to include. So they had to pre-think of all of the things that the lawyers needed to consider when they were doing their jobs. And that came in the form of checklists. And of course, as I mentioned, process maps, which is a very painful exercise, and I've done lots of these, but you sit with a business and you ask them to just talk, describe how this happens, and then you write it all down, and you map it out, and then you find the gaps. But the new way will be much more sophisticated and much more capable of being proactive, right? So instead of your skill set being in process mapping, you're always going to need process mapping to some extent, but you're going to have to elevate these capabilities into something that's a bit more AI first. So prompt engineering is one. Prompt engineering is the capability or the skill that you need to instruct the AI to do the things that were in your checklist, right? Or to instruct the AI to behave in a way that your intake form behaved previously if you're using an AI first legal front door. So it's not just about writing down the things, it's now about instructing the AI to execute on those things. So you would need to understand the process, you'd need to understand how to make it good, you'd need to understand what the lawyer's doing, and then you'd need to know how to tell the AI to do those things and escalate when it no longer can or should. So this art of prompt engineering is just a really good way of articulating to the AI what it needs to be doing. And the better you are at it, the better the output you will have from the AI. And I have got a masterclass, as I mentioned earlier, on prompt engineering that you can check out. It's very much focused on contracts, of course, because I was going through how you instruct the AI playbook on the Law Insider Word add-in to pick up risks or red flags or inconsistencies with your risk appetite by using the AI playbook. But this will become relevant in every other AI first legal tech tool. So there will be legal front doors that are AI driven, and you're going to have to tell the front door how to behave. Same with your repository, right? If you're trying to query a repository, an AI first repository, whereas before you had these really rigid systems where you where you stored your contract, and if you hadn't tagged the relevant metadata in your contract at the outset, you were screwed later, because if there was a change in the law, you weren't able to figure out what was going on unless you re-reviewed all your contracts. Whereas now with AI, you're able to query these databases and get it to pull out any metadata that you want at any point without having to worry about tagging it before. So that's prompt engineering. And then there's smart playbooks. So as I mentioned earlier, Law Insider, Spellbook, which was mentioned here, Evo, these tools have playbooks embedded. So whereas before, legal ops teams would create these really elaborate playbooks about what happens if this bit of the contract gets challenged, what you can say in that instance, and then what your fallback is. Now you just need to take all of that and codify it in an AI playbook. And then AI generated clauses and summaries. You don't need to tell people how to do this anymore. You just need to tell people how to use the AI to do it. And then you need to be gleaning insights from that. I'm seeing quite a few comments here, so I'm just going to stop and have a look. Where to start? Yeah, okay. Cool. Dory, there's lots of comments, so I'm just going to rely on you to tell me if I need to be stopping to look.
Yeah, there definitely are a few in the Q&A if we want to go in. I think one of they can get pretty deep. Resisting complacency and ensuring human in the loop operational design, identifying individuals who can be empowered with AI without risk of abuse. So
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's about internal alignment and policies to some degree, but yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go through these 6 areas, and then after that, I'll have a look at the questions. Okay, so we're going from cost control to business enablement, whereas before legal ops was responsible for enforcing billing guidelines, chasing discounts, vendor management. Now it's more about delivering AI-powered self-serve tools for sales, procurement, and HR. So again, for the first time, legal is going to be required to design not just for the lawyers, but for other teams as well. So instead of you kind of looking after exactly what legal has been traditionally doing, what's going to happen in the future is that you're going to have to design these systems that empower others to do it, even though it's legal remit. So governance will become really important here. Previously, what legal ops had to do was pick tools, monitor renewals, implement tools, have fights with their vendors, make sure that all the processes were automated via a tool that most often couldn't do it. But now what they're going to have to look at is AI accuracy. Is the AI doing what we needed it to do? They're going to have to be product managers to some extent, because now you have more control over your tools. Because before it was just what the CLM provider got you or what the legal tech provider gave you, and it was out of the box, and you didn't really have much leeway. And if you did want leeway, then you had to pay for really expensive services to get that leeway. Whereas now, a lot of these AI tools, you're instructing. So it gives you a driving seat. It requires you to learn a different skill set for you to get better at prompting. But once you've got that skill set, which by the way comes very naturally to anyone who likes language, and lawyers are great at that. But once you've got that and you are in the driving seat, you can tweak your tools to do more of what you need. And it's just about making sure that you are collecting the right signals from the use of the AI tools so that you can make these changes going forward. Previously, legal ops was required to manage the legal tech stack, and now they're going to have to be designing the ecosystem. I love this term because it really is going to be that. It's going to be an ecosystem. Tools will no longer have to sit in silo. They're going to have to have integrations across. They're going to have to be standards. And people are just going to have to look at the way that their whole legal team works as part of a broader organizational system. And this is where I think things like CLM are going to suffer. Sorry to have such a downer on CLM. I actually think that there are some really good things about it. I just think it has been quite a disappointing experience. And I think one of the reasons it was disappointing was that it just promised too much. And you've got these huge monolith tools that were really heavy and really expensive to implement and took loads of time, and you didn't get value quick enough, and so people lost motivation, and there were just so many reasons for which CLM didn't deliver. But just the expectation that the rest of the business was going to come to a legal tool to self-serve was just, it was never going to happen, right? Because legal is usually a supporting function, right? And so you can't be expecting the sales team that lives in Salesforce to have to come to your CLM in order to get what they need, because that's not where they live. So the adoption of the legal tech tools, even if they were successful within a legal team, were never as successful for external teams. And so you could never reap the benefits. Whereas now, when you're designing these systems that legal is going to be using or rolling out to the rest of the business, you're going to have to be very cognizant of the other tools that your business is using and be really mindful of the humans that are going to be using these tools. Because and this is not AI driven, right? It's just that the AI is the impetus, but you should be really aware of how people are behaving, and you should be designing systems that are going to suit those behaviors. Reporting lag metrics. So backwards looking dashboards is what we've always done, whereas now we're going to have access to live insights on clause risks, negotiation trends, success rates. So that will be the new job of the legal ops team. And skills that will define legal ops leaders are, in a nutshell, prompt engineering and logic mapping, systems thinking and integration design, understanding how the rest of the business works, what tools they're using, how legal will integrate within that. AI governance and feedback loop tuning. This is really important. Governance is key, making sure the guardrails are there so that you're not constantly worried that the rest of the organization is working in a way that's increasing your risk profile. And cross-functional enablement and UX thinking. UX is user experience, and thinking about how, taking a much more human-centric approach to the way that legal works. A big question is, will tomorrow's GC come from legal ops? And I touched on that previously, but yeah, it could be the case that the GC of the future is more of a legal ops leader, because if at the moment the leader of the legal part of the business needs to be really good at law, if you're in a fintech, you need someone, your GC is usually going to be someone who's got quite heavy regulatory background, and they understand all the legislation enough to be able to advise you on the strategy of your organization and where you're going. But if we assume that the AI will know that in a way that is reliable, let's not think about hallucinations for now, because I think that's just a today problem. In a couple of years' time, I don't think that hallucinations will be the problem that they are today. If we assume that the AI is really accurate, then we're no longer trading on our knowledge. Our knowledge is no longer our value. So what is our value? Our value is designing these systems that are going to help legal scale across a business. So instead of legal doing all the doing, legal is the designer of the legal engine that enables the business to self-serve as much as possible in order to be self-sufficient, but within parameters that align with the business's risk appetite. So perhaps, I think it is very likely that tomorrow's GC will come from legal ops, but we're going to need someone who has a profile that's almost akin to a COO. So that's the level that we're going to be operating at. So what's your role in legal's transformation? Legal Ops 2.0 is already here. I'm seeing strong signals of this. People are thinking about different ways of working. They're questioning their value. They're questioning their future, as scary as that sounds, but they are. And they're thinking about how they're going to work better. Are you going to maintain systems or architect them is the question. And yeah, the profession is definitely being redefined. And I think that if you're in these webinars or thinking about these topics or questioning more fundamental things, and I'm going to go into the Q&A in a moment and look at those deeper questions, but you have the opportunity to define where we're going and upskill quickly so that you can be in the driving seat. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now and I'm going to go straight to the Q&A function. Andrew, I'm going to start with you. We often default to talking about contracts when talking about legal ops use cases. How do we broaden the scope of legal ops to reduce the areas of legal support that are still bespoke and artisanal? Two of my favorite words. Such a great question. I think that we need to start by really checking our risk appetite. I think we've been hoarding a lot of the power and a lot of the control when it comes to how we work in legal. And we just need to be realistic. I'm not just talking about contracts, I'm talking about insourcing, which is giving the power to other parts of the organization. What's the actual risk? Can you mitigate the risk? And if so, how do you do that? What do you need to put in place? What controls do you need? And then put those in place so that you can get rid of more work, so that you can get some time back to do more of this system design. I hope that answers the question, Andrew, but do let me know if you want me to go any deeper on that. Julie, how do you identify those individuals who can be empowered by AI without risk of abuse and strategies to monitor this over time when contracts and risk appetite change over time? Julie, that's a really good question. And I think that this is why legal needs a seat at the table, because you need to understand what the risk appetite of the business is and how it's changing, because it will change. A startup's risk tolerance is through the roof. It's anxiety inducing, but it has to be, because they're not worried about their T's and C's not being on point when they might not have a business next month because they run out of money. So your risk tolerance, the risk tolerance of the business should change, and legal needs to know that, because by default, what lawyers do is they apply their own risk appetite, their personal risk appetite, to a contract review or a review of a risk that's been raised by the broader business. Whereas actually, you're not there to apply your personal risk appetite. You're there to understand the risk appetite of the business and then tell them what strategies they need to employ in order to get to where they want to, whilst remaining within their risk threshold. So that's really the job. How you identify those individuals, I think, talk to people and see what they're thinking, what they're motivated by, what they're scared of, and then try and explain the benefits, the risks, the opportunities. Diana, how do you resist complacency and ensure human in the loop operational design? Yeah, I mean, Diana, yeah, lots of people are really worried about this, and they're worried about us losing our creativity to some extent, or critical thinking capabilities. Just getting people, if you're going to review a contract and you're just going to click one button and it's going to redline the whole agreement, are you going to be tempted to just send it out without even doing a check? Maybe at some point that will be okay. I know that sounds scary, but maybe at some point that will be okay. Maybe at some point you will trust the AI so deeply that actually the cost benefit of you just getting something out is easier and more beneficial to the business. It's quicker, it's cheaper, and it's more beneficial to the business because the risk of that type of agreement is so low that it warrants that kind of approach. The human in the loop operational design is, I think it just boils down to governance. So when you're designing your system that is AI driven and you're introducing an AI element into your workflow, say it's contract review, you want to make sure that contracts that are over, this is just an example, contracts that are over a certain value have to be escalated before they can go out. Or contracts that raise this flag around intellectual property, because if you're, I don't know, a software company that's trading on its IP and it's an enormous part of their value, you don't just want a sales guy or a junior person signing away all your IP, of course. So maybe it's on a clause level, and the AI can help you with that in a way that maybe humans missed previously. The AI will definitely be picking up an IP clause there. So I think it's about thinking about where the risks lie and then creating governance around those risks. I hope that's answered your question. Anna, for corporate banking and corporate finance, is it fair to expect that template contracts, even for more sophisticated transactions, are prepared by AI agents as junior lawyers. And then for negotiation, mostly that will stay with the human to negotiate with the clients together with the deal people. And for example, in syndicated loans, several banks and legal teams are looking at the same contract. How much is it likely to change and be replaced by AI? I think AI agents are going to be everywhere in the next couple of years. And I think they're going to be really important. And I think they're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I do think you need a human for the negotiation, or at least at an escalation point. Maybe in a couple of years, you'll have two AI tools that are negotiating with each other, and then they get to a standstill, and they say, right, now this needs to get escalated to humans. And then they put a calendar invitation in your diary so that you can talk to each other. And then you get on and you're like, oh, our AI said that we should talk. What's up? That's something that I don't think is too far away for us. I don't think that's a problem. But you're always going to need to have that human element to build a relationship, because ultimately that's what contracts are about. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case for NDAs. Like, let's just outsource that to an AI agent as much as possible, or just adopt one NDA. You don't need AI. Okay. Right. Recommendation for specific resources to learn about legal AI prompt engineering. Please, Carrie, yes, please check out our webinar. We have a masterclass on prompt engineering, and then we have another one about how to build your AI playbook with us. So please do check those. Dory's already dropped a link in the chat, but if we could just re-drop it again, that'd be great. Are you going to explain how to manage workflows via AI? I think workflows is a very broad word, so it depends on your workflow, right? But I will give you an example of how to manage workflows with AI. So if, for example, you're using AI to review a contract, the workflow might have previously been that you open up a contract and you review it manually. And then you have a playbook, which is an Excel spreadsheet that you open up, and you look at any points in the agreement that don't align with the playbook. And then you manually go into that playbook and copy and paste language over to the document to bring it into line with your preferred positions. What you can do with AI is codify that playbook, and then you can use an AI tool like the Law Insider tool, for example, or Spellbook or Ivo, to review your contract and instantly, in like a few seconds, pick up any inconsistencies with your playbook. And not only that, it will also offer you red lines. So you can click a button and then those red lines will be applied directly in the document, and all this works in Word. So your workflow of working in Word is not disrupted, but your workflow of manually picking out parts of the playbook and then putting them into your agreement is. So that's a way, that's an example of how you use AI to manage a contract review workflow. Okay, I always worry currently that AI systems only look and assess the past documents and then utilize these for current work. They don't provide future excellence in new clauses or nuanced contracts that require difference or change. Matthew, I think that if you're using an AI playbook or an AI contract review tool, you will usually have clause libraries. We're releasing a feature soon where you can just store all your clauses as well. So you will have this kind of retrospective look at what you've used before. But if you wanted to ask the system whether this is standard or whether this language is achieving your purpose, then you can do that. And that will be leveraging OpenAI or whatever large language model is being used. So although they're picking up knowledge from everywhere, this AI is generative, so it can also give you a conclusion. And so I don't think that we're missing innovation there. But let me know if I've misunderstood the question. Chris is saying that Google put out a very good prompt engineering guide. It did, yes. I think I shared that with Dory as soon as it came out. Yes, it did. And Anthropic has recently launched an AI fluency course, which is about safe, effective, and efficient use of AI. That's really valuable, Chris. Thank you for that. Dory and I will share that those links after this as well, because that's a great resource. Jean is saying, in the US, I would say legal ops knowledge would be beneficial, but GCs typically also serve as privacy compliance officers in addition. Yeah, I mean, we have overloaded the role of a GC, haven't we? We've given them a lot of different hats. So I wonder whether in a world where we can outsource a lot of the stuff that we do to AI, whether that will change. You need to have an AI use policy to manage the risk and create a check and balance approach. Yeah, totally. You do need to have an AI policy. I think lots of organizations do have an AI policy, but maybe you need to tailor that to the legal team as well. Yes, we use OpenAI. I'm not sure about Spellbook, but we use OpenAI. Just on the question from Anu around what LLM model we use. Cool. Okay. Can anyone recommend a good vendor management system? Vendor management is not the same as contract management. That's totally true. I can't, Sky, but maybe someone else can respond in the comments. How do you protect the information that you're feeding the AI? Will you need to have AI platforms built specifically on your own network server? I don't know, Michael. I think that at the moment, the AI, like for example, with Law Insider, we don't train the AI with your data. So I think many tools are going to be like that, where they're not training the AI with your data. And what you don't want is to be on your own in your own kind of environment and you're not getting the benefits from all the updates that OpenAI is doing. I mean, it's such a powerful platform, and the difference between 3.5 and 4 was like 100-fold. So you don't want to be losing out from those upgrades and benefits. Okay. Do you have a measure of the time saved with Law Insider during a contract drafting process as well as the contract review process? We've had so many testimonials on this, Ragul, and someone recently said that they're saving 50%. So it's halved the time that it takes them to review an agreement. But you're welcome to try it and let me know if you disagree. How do you most effectively address concerns about confidentiality and data leakage with AI models from skeptical colleagues? This is such a common concern. I would just say, don't just put stuff that's confidential into generic models like ChatGPT, because that's probably not as safe as your organization would like. So I would say just make sure that you're using tools that are specific to your sector. Raphael, yes, that can be used. The Law Insider system can be used by French-speaking lawyers. Totally, it does speak French fluently. Okay. We are using a contract specialist model, meaning we have legal admins manually managing contract intake and preliminary playbook-based contract reviews. How do we elevate this model to an AI-first structure? We are very interested in moving what we can to business ownership. Love that. Firstly, what a laborious job that must be. You can use if you would like to. I know this is an anonymous message, but please email me after this and we can have a further conversation about it. I can show you the Law Insider tool because I think that's just a great. You can do that so easily. It's very rare that we find people that have documented playbooks. So if you do have one, that's great. We can do it for you. Chipan, hi. We've talked a lot about top-down design of the legal ops system. If I run a team of in-house counsel, any suggestions on how I can get them trained up and actually involved in the design of our new legal ops system? Yes. Well, you need a strategy, right? You need a strategy for what your new legal ops system is going to look like. And the way you do that is that you start by looking at the business strategy. If your business strategy is to grow really fast or downsize or expand or acquire, your legal strategy is going to be different. So you start off by saying, this is the business strategy. And then you think, okay, well, what does the legal strategy need to look like as a result? And what's our mission and vision? So very much treating your legal team as its own business. And then from there, you need to allow people to talk about the way that they're working at the moment. You will need to do a process mapping exercise. You can probably use AI tools for that as well. And then you will get them to feed into the new design. Chipan, I'm sorry, I haven't got enough detail on what it is that you're planning to do and how you can best get them involved. But I think involving them earlier and getting them to really see the pains that you're trying to solve and the objective, i.e. the business strategy and the legal strategy, are really fundamental elements of any change management challenge, which is what you're referring to here. How well can your AI application learn from my company's management agreements, bank loan and insurance contracts to advise on compliance with client contract reviews? We don't advise as such, but we do redline your agreements. And if you want to book a demo, John, please feel free. We can follow up after this to so that you can book a demo and I can show you what the tool can do. But basically, you can feed it your playbook and then it will leverage AI to review a contract for you in seconds. Does Law Insider have a facility to upload playbooks? Right now, custom playbooks need to be added one by one. No, but yes, it will soon, very soon, in the next week. I think next week that facility feature will be available, and I'm really looking forward to it because everyone asks us this question, and we're about to be able to say yes to it. Okay. Cool. We've only got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try and answer the last few questions that I'm seeing coming through. With use of AI in Zoom and other meeting tools, it is a best practice to remove permissions on recording, summarizing legal calls. Obviously, all recordings would be discoverable in litigation, or are these being integrated into the applicable cloud? I've never thought of that, Jean. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I was on a call recently. It was a sales call, and the lawyer that I was talking to asked me to switch off my AI recording device off. So I think that that's happening, but I can't really advise on legal privilege or anything like that and whether you retain it if things are being recorded. Do you implement Law Insider CLM internally or through a third-party vendor? So Law Insider does not have a CLM as such. Simple Docs, which is our sister company, has a modular CLM, which means that it sells standalone tools that when knitted together would deliver full CLM capability, but they understand that rolling out CLM as a monolith piece of software is not a successful way of driving adoption. And so that's why they sell their tools as a standalone solution. And Rushan, if you're interested, we can send you some more information, or you can book a demo and we can show you all the CLM features as well. It's simple docs. I'm just going to drop the yes. Okay, do you have an ideal legal ops structure for medium-sized in-house legal teams? I do, and I will share it in the next installation of these webinars. So in the next webinar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through a strategic design for a legal ops function, and I will show you all the elements that you need to be considering. These are almost AI agnostic. So I'm going to be going through just, this is a legal ops framework that you can follow, and AI can knit into this. Yeah, so hopefully that will help. Plus current, yes. So Chris Barton's saying, whilst on this call, I used the Law Insider tool to generate a contract summary plus covering email to the business. Without this tool, it likely would have taken 2-3 hours, but it did it very quickly. Yay, that's so great to hear. Deborah, yes, I think we can share the PowerPoint, no problem. Yeah. Good. I'm glad this resonated. I know that a lot of this was quite, just a thought piece, but I'm really grateful for all your input. So thank you. And we'll be following up with some more practical webinars soon. Thanks very much, everyone.